We're here with Winona Nelson over Skype at this time. She unfortunately had to go home early due to priorities on her end. And for everybody who doesn't know you, can you introduce yourself to all the people who are not familiar with you?
Well, my name is Winona Nelson, and I do artwork for magic cards, as well as book covers for Warhammer fantasy books, and some comic work and video game work as well.
And what got you interested into drawing art?
Well, I've always drawn ever since I was a really little kid, but the thing that made me pursue it as a career was playing video games when I was a teenager, especially Final Fantasy VII and Xenogears were very influential to me. They came with booklets inside of the CD case that had character art in it, and it was a dream of mine for a long time to be able to do work of that type. And I also played magic cards with my older brother, and always loved the artwork on those.
So you played Final Fantasy VII on the original PlayStation, correct?
Yep.
And
yeah, and I pre-ordered it, and we stayed home from school for 3 days to just play it straight through.
That's interesting. And you said that you also played Magic, correct?
Yeah, although I only played a little bit, and it was so many years ago that I'm not really that knowledgeable about how the game works now.
Especially with all those rule changes, correct?
Yeah, there have been a lot of rule changes. I have a general understanding of it, but
not a huge understanding.
Not in depth.
I see. And what are your influences and inspirations?
I'm sorry?
What are your influences and inspirations?
Oh, I have so many. A big one for me was the animated movie Akira, and I've since gotten all of the graphic novels, and I look at those all the time. There's also a lot of illustrators that I'm very into, like J.C. Leyendecker, who used to do Saturday Evening Post covers in like the Roaring 20s. So a lot of these very elegant and stylized paintings, and there's so many. I look at pictures more often than I paint them, really.
Interesting. And what kind of tools do you use?
That's my cat. Sorry.
That's okay. And what kind of tools do you use to produce your works?
Some of my paintings I make digitally using Photoshop, and some of them are oil paintings. And sometimes I photograph an oil painting and then finish it digitally.
Yeah, so you don't have to go through the rigorous process of physically editing certain stuff if the contract says, no, that's not what we're looking for.
Yeah, and sometimes drying time is a problem. If it's a short deadline or I haven't given myself enough time in the final stages, then I'll photograph it and work on it digitally. I learned to paint digitally, so I'm more comfortable in that medium, and I can make the changes I need to make much faster.
So you have one of those Wacom tablets, correct?
Yep, that's right.
I happen to have one of my old ones from the .com boom. Since I'm in my living quarters right now and you're near a computer, I can quickly show you it. This one, kind of dusty.
Oh yeah.
Remember this one? Back from the 90s?
I don't remember that specific one, but I had one that wasn't Wacom that was called a Pablo tablet, and I think that was from around the same time period.
Yeah. I never actually got to use this thing, but for all those people out there who are wondering what type of device, what type of archaic version of it looks like. There it is. Anyway, how are you approached for contract?
Usually people email me. So, my business is almost all just done over the internet, and people email me, and every once in a while I'll speak to the client on the phone if they want to have like a more of an official meeting, but usually things are just through email.
To save everybody time.
Sorry?
To save everybody time, correct?
Yeah, and so everything is documented, so when you have to make changes, you'll be able to check back over the list and see all the things they've asked for, stuff like that.
Yeah, and if they try to do a slip up, you can just yank up all the emails and say, this is what we discussed, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, correct?
That's right.
And how did Wizards approach you for contract?
I actually met the art director, Jeremy Jarvis, at a couple of different events I was at, and I showed him my portfolio. I was working in video games at the time, so I had to do some additional portfolio pieces to make him feel confident about how my work would look when I spent more time on an image, because one of the differences with illustration and doing concept art for video games is that when you're working for video games, it's very fast turnaround, and you never really have to finish a painting all the way out. So the detail's not really there, or like for the sake of time, you might drop pieces of photos in to show texture rather than actually paint it. So when I was showing my work to Jeremy Jarvis, I met him, I think, on 2 or 3 different occasions and showed him my portfolio each time, asking him, like, what I would need to do next to show him that I could work for Magic.
How many times did you have to show your portfolio over a period of time?
I think I showed him my portfolio 3 times in the course of about 6 months.
6 months?
I think.
6
Yeah.
months?
So the first time I showed him my portfolio, I had some pieces in there that he liked, but he thought they needed more work, like more time spent on them and more detail in the background. So the second time I showed him my work, some of those pieces I had made some changes to according to the things that he thought I could improve on them. And I think that gave him a lot more confidence that I could do the work.
I see. Kind of loud over there.
Sorry?
It's kind of loud over there. Kind of loud over there, correct?
Oh, yeah, there's a little bit of street noise. Sorry about that.
Not to worry. I have my laptop fan running over here. Anyway, out of all the games you have done work for, how many have you played so far?
How many have I played?
Yeah. That you've worked on.
Well, only 2 of the games that I worked on were, well, I think 3 of the games that I worked on were released, and I've played 2 of them. The first one was Hellgate London for PC, which I played a lot, and then the next one was Drawn to Life for the Wii, and I played that one a little bit with my little brothers because it's a game for kids, basically. And then I did some stuff for the video game tie-in for Disney's Tangled, and I did not play that one.
I see. So, are there any other games that you've worked on that you've actually played? That includes tabletop games, mobile games, anything else?
Well, Magic I've played a little bit, but I have some friends who play it with like a baby version of the rules with me so that I can play it. I'm learning slowly. And I've done some work for some Fantasy Flight games that I haven't tried yet, like the Lord of the Rings game. I just did some work for Lord of the Rings, or a Hobbit mobile game for Kabam, and I haven't played that yet,
I see. I understand that before you did some stuff for Magic, can you tell us about your involvement with the Ice and Fire trading card game?
The Ice and Fire trading card game?
Correct.
I'm not sure I'm familiar with that.
Well, when I pulled up your name, I found a few pieces. I found a few of your pieces on a few of those cards. Ice and Fire.
That might have been something I did with Fantasy Flight, maybe. I'm not familiar with the title, I'm sorry. Is that the card game for Game of Thrones?
I think so.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know the name of the game. But I haven't actually played that game, but I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan. From before the show came out, I've read all the books, and so I really enjoyed doing those pieces. I got to do a few of the characters that I really, really enjoyed, so that was fun.
I see. So you were not invited to any of their events as a guest?
No.
I see. So what was your involvement with Hellgate?
Hellgate, I was hired on just after the game was released to do downloadable content. So the subscribers were going to get the things that I designed. Like, I was doing guns and monsters and armor, and some of the people got to see them, the people who were beta testing, but then the game didn't do very well, and they ended up canceling it. So my stuff, I think only the beta testers got to play, unfortunately.
I see. Real bummer to do a lot of work only to see it.
I'm sorry, it's breaking up.
So it's a real bummer to do a lot of work for this game this game with DLC, only to not actually get to, for the world not to actually get to actually see it, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? There was a sound that I couldn't hear over.
Oh, sorry about that. As I say again, so you did a lot of work with this Hellgate for DLC, and
yes.
The world never actually got to see it, correct?
Yeah, there were a select few people that were involved in the early testing that got to play it, and it was unfortunate because I really, really enjoyed working on that game, and it's the only game that I've gotten to do any weapon design for. So I really actually enjoy doing gun design for video games, and I've only gotten to do it the one time for Hellgate.
So you're even going to do weapon designs for real guns, correct? If you were approached for that.
Well, I don't know if I would do it for real guns, because there's actually a lot of technical things that you would have to know and be able to take into account. Like, I enjoy designing guns that are realistic enough that they look like you could hold them and you could see where the clip goes and that kind of thing, but I like to still be a little bit fantastical with them. Like, the gun that I designed for Hellgate London, I think, had it had these panels that would open up off of the barrel while you were shooting and had, like, electrical effects and stuff like that, and you can't really do that with a real gun. So I kind of like to push it a little bit further into a fantasy world.
Well, that's what they said yesterday with Bullpup Rifles.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Bullpup Rifles? When it was just an idea bouncing around in the 19th century, and a lot of people said, no, the Bullpup Rifle is never going to work. Loading a magazine from the rear is the quote-unquote worst idea in the world. But then the spark and interest with Bullpup Rifles came up in the 70s with the Star AUG, and it's successful, and it's very successful design with the Bullpup, and then it kind of snowballed around 2000 when the Halo 1 assault rifle was introduced, and that tiny little conspiracy between Frederic National and Bungie, that Bungie had actually contracted Frederic National to design the Halo 1 assault rifle so they could hopefully sell more FNF 2000s, and then Bungie had to release this public statement stating that Frederic National was not actually involved with their Halo 1 project. And then they said, oh, the rifle just looks very similar to one another without the electronic counter.
I know that I went to school in San Francisco with some of the guys that work for Massive Black concept art company, and they've designed Nerf guns, so I think that's as close a connection to real gun design that I could claim. But yeah, I think it's interesting how the armed forces have been actually hiring video game concept artists to work on their projects sometimes.
Yep. Anyway, can you tell us about your time with Safe House?
The Safe House is the school I was just mentioning. It was when I went, they had just opened it. I was in the first class, and so some of the aspects of it weren't quite organized yet, but it was a really, really fantastic experience. I was really excited about the fact that we would get classical realism training in the style of the old masters, because I knew that having a strong foundation like that would make it so I could go on to do just about anything. And it was at the time the only school that had any kind of specific program for concept art for video games, and that was what I had been dreaming of doing since I was a child. So it was a really great experience, and that the people that I met at that school were what eventually led to me getting my first video game job working on Hellgate London.
So it's not like our good friend Jason Felix, who had to actually do it on his own, and then go to Kinko's, work at Kinko's for a bit, print out 5,000 copies of his portfolio each, and then spray it everywhere, or physically, place by place and place, and then he's like, I got a reply message from San Francisco. Rejection. I'll move over there. I was like, what you doing over here? We just sent you a rejection letter. Like, oh, you didn't see my new work. So, here you go. Or that
my desk at Hellgate London was right next to Jason's, so I've spent a lot of time with him.
In fact, I conducted an interview with him about 2 years ago out of his secret studio. Yep. That's what makes my interview with him very special. It was conducted right out of his secret workplace that I'm not supposed to tell anybody.
That's really cool.
Anyway, can you tell us in more detail about your time living in San Francisco?
Well, San Francisco was a really, really excellent place to live as far as being fully immersed in an active arts community. There were so many people involved in the Safe House Atelier, and so many people that worked in video games that weren't involved in the atelier. So even when I wasn't at school, I started a sketch group with some of my friends that met every Sunday night, and we invited other people that we met through figure drawing sessions around San Francisco, and ended up having a sketch group that was full of people that were video game professionals and hopefuls. So it was a really, really active time in pushing that side of my art.
So where would these sessions usually be held?
We alternated between being in the city of San Francisco and being in the East Bay. So usually every other time was, when it was in the city, it was either at my house or at Mark Taro Holmes' house. And then when it was in the East Bay, it was at a couple of the other atelier, well, it was at one of the other atelier students' house some of the time, and other times it was just in cafes.
I see. So what happened to this Mark guy?
I'm sorry?
What happened to this Mark guy?
Oh, Mark Taro Holmes?
Yes.
He moved to Canada, but when he was still living in San Francisco, he was working at video game studios, and he actually really, really helped me big time with my portfolio when I was looking for work. And when I started getting interviews from game companies, he actually sat down with me and did a mock interview so I would know what kind of questions to expect, and so I would have some practice before I went to my interviews at actual game companies. So he taught me so much. And he was the person who told me that when he was in art school, that every time he got an assignment, he would do it once for class and once for himself, so that he would be able to use it in a portfolio, because you don't want to have schoolwork in your portfolio. You want that all to be personal work. So, and he told me that having done each assignment twice was a big reason why he had the kind of portfolio that he could then go on and get work in the video game industry without even graduating college. He dropped out to take work, and he really helped me get my portfolio together. And all of the portfolio pieces I did outside of school, I brought to him for feedback. So he was as big a teacher to me as any of the guys at Massive Black were.
Yeah, I see. It's not like what I was doing when I was starting video journalism early on. There's no system set in stone. It's like very chaotic, and then I had to. What was it again? All right. I had to borrow a camera from somebody, and then I had to figure everything out on my own. And this is like my first time behind a camcorder, and I had to do the whole thing on the fly.
Mhm.
So
yeah, doing art for a living is a lot like that. Basically, every single person's career is completely different, and the path is never the same twice. So you have to get as much advice as you can from as many different people as you can, because just getting a degree is usually not enough to prepare you to go on and become a professional artist. It's more important to know people that are doing it professionally and get advice from them. But you're still going to have to blaze your own path no matter how many mentors you have.
Yep. Nothing is easy.
Yeah, that's right. Especially when it's so much about your personal tastes and talents. It really has to be a much more personal journey.
Yep. Anyway, how many times have you used yourself as a character model?
How many times have I what?
How many times have you been used as a character model?
Oh, I don't know, a lot. I use myself pretty much anytime I have, like, I might have a reference of, like, even if it's a male character, I might have a reference of what I want for the head, but not have the arms in the right position. So a lot of the time I just use my web camera and, like, get my hands and try to get the lighting right and stuff like that. So even when I have my boyfriend pose for a male character, I might have to use my own hands. Or just about every time I have a female character, it's self-reference too. And then when it's not either me or my boyfriend, it's usually one of our other artist friends. So I think if you were to go through a stack of magic cards and ask each artist who posed for them, you probably more than half of it would be self-reference, and the things that weren't self-reference would probably be other artists, because they're just really easy to get to do what you need them to do. because other artists always understand what you need in a photo reference.
I see. I remember that Matt Kubota used himself as a character model before with his spouse.
For what?
I remember that Matt Kubota used himself as a character model several times, especially in one of those Mirrodin cards with his spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also...
I've got a couple of cards that are me and Tony together, like the Stormkirk Heirs card. It's these two vampires walking with their arms interlocked, and that's totally just Tony and I. And I tried to change our faces slightly, but you can still tell.
I see. And then I remember that Matt Kubota even used a random Wizards employee for Goblin Piledriver, where his face is being torn off. Have you seen that one yet?
No, I haven't.
Since when you're a computer, you can switch up to the Gatherer and type in... Wait, instead go to Google, type in Goblin Piledriver in the search engine, and you'll pull up an image of Matt Kubota's piece of work regarding Goblin Piledriver.
Oh, that's great.
I don't know who did the Goblin model, but we do know that he used a random Wizards employee for the person who has his face being torn off by a bunch of goblins.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, that's great.
Anyway, can you tell us about that Mario piece you did a while back?
About which piece?
That Mario piece. That's
the
on
Mario
your site.
piece?
Yeah, that's on your site.
Yeah, I did that as part of an online challenge on conceptart.org. They would occasionally have these competitions called Thunderdomes, and they had one where the theme that they asked you to draw your inspiration from was just the word brotherhood. And so I started thinking about famous brothers, and Mario Brothers was the first ones that popped into my head, just having been such a big gamer as a kid that the instant I thought of Mario, I was like, I had the image in my head because I played Mario 2 a lot, and that one is so weird and trippy that I always kind of wanted to do a piece with the Shy Guys depicted realistically because they were so creepy, just these little guys wandering around with masks on, following you. And I know that game was originally made as Tokidoki Panic, which was like a Middle Eastern flavored game with two kids as the main characters, and then they just reskinned it to make it into a Mario game, which is why even for a Mario game it's so surreal. And I just thought that was really interesting. The whole, like, throwing vegetables at these little guys in masks. There's just something really funny about it that when you're playing the game, you don't think about how weird it is, but when you take a step back and actually think about the fact that you're throwing turnips as a weapon, it's just so funny. So that's what I did the piece for, and I won the competition, and I don't remember if there was any... I don't think there was any kind of prize or anything. It was just a voting thing.
I see. And we understand you attended a Magic Grand Prix recently in December with your boyfriend Anthony Palumbo and Raymond Swanland. Can you tell us about it? Can you tell us about your experiences from that event?
Do you mean the Grand Prix in Toronto that I went to?
Correct.
That was my first big magic events that I've done, and I really, really enjoyed it. I had an excellent time there. I think I've done a lot of convention appearances, like at comic book conventions, and I think that the magic event was by far the most pleasant, just because I think magic fans are like the best group of fans out there. They're just so they're so easy to talk to and so personable, and I think that's part of what makes magic such a great thing to be involved in, because it's something that really brings people together. And a lot of people meet their really good friends through magic, so it seemed like just a big gathering of family or something. It was really great.
It could also be a huge gathering between rivalries as well.
Yeah, that's true.
At those type
But what
of events.
family doesn't have rivalries?
I can't name one family who doesn't have a rivalry.
Yeah.
And we also heard that you had an ATM issue. Has it been settled out yet?
Yes, it has. It was I think that there was a skimmer on the ATM machine that I used in Toronto, but it's all worked out with the bank. So.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
And what do you think about 3D printers?
What do I think about what?
3D printers.
3D printers?
Correct.
I think they're amazing. I wish I had one. When I was working at Hellgate London, they had 3D prints made of some of the game models, and it was so cool to see them, to like physically be able to pick them up and touch them.
Instead of having to do the concept first on a computer, and then you have to ship the thing to some manufacturing plant someplace else, and if you're pressing on a deadline, and you're like, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Manufacturing Plant, are you done crafting the final model yet? And then you get a mixed response, and then they ship it back to you either correct or not correct. And this 3D printer thing, I think, is going to actually cut a lot of time in the future if it's mass-produced to the extent.
Oh, I think so. I mean, like, rapid prototyping, and I would, if I had one, I would make, I mean, I already make some of my reference in 3D programs, and if I could print it out and hold it up into light, I mean, one of the weaknesses of using a computer for reference and building your 3D is that everything has to be planned. There's no chance for like a happy accident where you hold the object up and you get like a cool bounce light off of something else that you weren't planning to, but it looks really, really interesting. You can't get that as much in a computer. So I've always built a lot of my reference using just Sculpey and just lighting it with a desk lamp and taking pictures. But if I could build things in 3D and then print them out, then there's all the, I mean, like, you can have mirroring to get things to be symmetrical, and it's so hard to make things symmetrical in a sculpture. That would just be awesome.
So until the day when we could actually physically purchase these 3D printers, we have to be dead on the money, correct?
That's right, yeah.
And regarding...
And they have ones that you can get now, but they're still like a few $1,000s. So it's kind of a distant future type of dream unless they become cheaper.
And especially the cartridges, like for plastics, metals, and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And regarding 3D printers, what do you think about wiki weapons?
What do I think about what?
Wiki weapons.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Wiki weapons.
I keep not understanding you, I'm sorry.
Wiki weapons. printable guns.
Oh, that would be really cool for reference stuff. I have a few airsoft rifles that I will pose with when I need a gun reference, but if I could like actually print out a copy of a gun that I needed, something more specific, because I have just a sort of a generic rifle and a generic assault rifle and a couple of pistols, but with airsoft rifles it's hard to make sure you're getting the right thing because sometimes they're not full scale. They're like child sized, and then you can't use them for reference, and they don't always say on the websites where they sell them whether it's full scale or not. So it would be pretty amazing if I could design the weapon that I need a reference for and then just print it out.
So, you did not hear anything about Cody Wilson, correct?
I'm sorry?
Cody Wilson. Ever heard of that guy? Cody Wilson. Cody Wilson? Yes.
I'm not familiar with him, I'm sorry.
Well, Cody Wilson is currently in the process of figuring out all the logistics in making printable guns. Actual workable printable guns. Using 3D printers. It's gotten a lot of controversy lately. And so far he has successfully made a workable M16 magazine. 30 rounds. It works. He chambered it. Actually, he has a video up on it on YouTube. Well, I'll pull a link up to it. I'll give you a link to his channel. It's titled DX Liberty. Can you go to YouTube and type in DX Liberty? The first video, when you enter his site, is an AR-15 magazine.
Did you say DX Liberty?
Correct.
I don't think any of these videos are the one you're looking at.
Can you go to his channel?
Oh, search for a channel?
Yes.
There it is. They've changed the website just enough that I don't know how to do things.
Okay, if you're having issues with that, type in WikiWeapon. Type in WikiWeapon in YouTube search.
Okay, I've got stuff for WikiWeapon.
Find the thumbnail that says printablegun.com. You'll easily go to his channel.
I found a video called The Wiki Weapon.
Yes, it has over 1 million hits.
Friends and I decided to band together under a collective name.
Okay, click his username. You should be in his featured section when you enter it.
I just skipped ahead to see the printer going. It's amazing.
Last time I checked it up on Cody Wilson, he's in the process of making AK-47 parts with that printer.
Well, I don't want to take up our interview time just watching the video, but that's pretty amazing that he made a working gun. It's kind of scary, because, you know, I'm actually, as much as I enjoy designing guns and I like, you know, military history and tanks and jets and all that stuff, I much prefer them to be in video games where they're not actually hurting people. So printing it out in a real form, kind of scary.
Really interesting, isn't it? How far people are willing to push it.
Sorry, I had it muted because of the video. What did you just say?
So it's really interesting how far people are willing to push this technology, correct?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's a really interesting sort of proof of concept for the 3D printer to be able to make something that complicated and have it working. This is my cat, Diego, by the way. You're in the way. There's his cute face.
So you have a cat at home,
Sorry
correct?
about that.
So you have a cat named Diego, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's a sweetie.
Anyway, so getting back to what you were saying about 3D printers and printable guns.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting that people would actually push the technology that far.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing that something that complex can be made and printed and have it fully working.
All the way down to metal components.
Yeah. I got distracted for a second there, sorry. My cat is chasing his tail. It's really cute.
Anyway. So, you'll do concepts for anything and everything, right?
What was that?
You'll do concepts for anything and everything, right?
Concepts for what?
Anything and everything, correct?
Yeah, pretty much.
And the cost will vary, correct?
I'm sorry?
The cost will vary, correct?
The what?
The cost will vary, correct?
Yes. Yeah, depending on the complexity and stuff.
And what kind of games would you not do concepts for?
I kind of try to stick to things that I think are, I don't like working on games or characters that I think are disrespectful to women. I much prefer to work on things that are empowering to everyone. So, yeah, and I'm Native American, so I also really, it's important to me to see representations of people of different races and different sort of gender expression. So I think my specialty in characters is sort of more powerful women and male characters that are a little bit less traditional. Like, I don't do many of the huge hulking monster type dudes, but more like realistically proportioned, or sort of exploring a more aesthetic side of male characters. So, I think, you know, anybody familiar with my magic work would know that some of my male characters are, like, you know, specifically shirtless vampire dudes, like the Rakish Air card. I know I had a bit of controversy about that. But I kind of feel like there's enough people doing a lot of scantily clad women and powerful dudes that, to me, it's much more interesting to do the reverse of both of those stereotypes.
I see. So if you're approached by a hentai company, you'll turn them down, correct?
Yeah.
Even if they offered you a huge sum of money for you to pay the bills, correct?
Yeah. I can make money doing the things that I think are important to the world, that I think will actually, I think that art is the way that I can make a difference in people's lives, even though it's, I'm doing pictures for people's entertainment, but I feel like I'm telling people that aren't usually told that they're important, that they can be powerful and important, and yeah, I think that's something that the world needs more than just another person making hentai. Not that I'm judging anybody, because there are people that are into that kind of thing. But.
Anyway, what do you think about Alexi's game that he unveiled a little while ago, titled "Remember Me"?
I'm not very familiar with it.
Alexi Bricklow's game, titled "Remember Me."
Yeah, I haven't played it or anything. I know Alexi's work, but yeah.
Well, he just unveiled a game that was supposed to be released in December, but it was pushed back. But the release date was pushed back to May. The official title was "Remember Me," but during development it was titled "Adrift." Alexi and his team designed the game. Actually, he modeled the game after Paris, but it takes place in a place called Neo Paris. Paris 2.0, practically. And the game is practically an Orwellian game questioning social networking. And they have this device called Memorize. It's practically, the message of the game is practically, how much liberty are you willing to trade for security?
That sounds really interesting.
I don't have the full plot yet because the game has not been released yet, but when I met Alexi a while back, he said that the game was 50% complete, but up to this point now, it's about over 90% complete. And this is his very first art direction project, to my knowledge. So practically I could see all his influences in sci-fi coming together right in that one little game.
Yeah. It's really exciting to see somebody that you've known for so many years, moving up in the industry and getting to head a big project like that. I'll be very interested to see what it looks like.
Well, they already had their discussion panel at New York Comic-Con, where Alexi then showed a photograph of he stretching an actual condom over his head as a reference piece of material. I thought that was really interesting, how far he's willing to go for art direction. It's like, this is what I had to do to get a certain effect. I had to stretch a condom over my head and then take a picture of myself. And then the whole audience laughed. Well, the video of what happened at New York Comic-Con is also up, if you can find it.
I'll be sure to check that out. Yeah.
It happened around the time of the largest Magic Grand Prix in America, Grand Prix San Jose, 2012, where Darkin, Anthony Francisco, and Rob Alexander attended. According to Darkin, he said that over 2,000 people attended that particular event.
Oh, that's a big one.
That's the largest it has ever happened in North America. I remember the other time I went to the very first Grand Prix San Jose, it was only a fourth of that. 500 people. Tops. Back then. But this 2012 Grand Prix for San Jose really takes the cake.
Yeah. It's really exciting how Magic seems to just get bigger every single year.
Yep.
The Toronto Grand Prix that I was at was just over 1,000 people, and that was the biggest it had ever been in Canada.
Yeah, I remember when Grand Prix were like less than 500 people in attendance in America, and then less than 700 people in Japan, and then less than 200 people in New Zealand, and in Europe, it used to be under 2,000 people, around 1,000 to 2,000 people. And I remember that one of my contacts over in Spain, he went to the largest European Grand Prix ever recorded, which was a Legacy Grand Prix held in, I believe, Bilbao, Spain, where he recorded over 2,000, nearly 3,000 people attending that particular event, to the point where they had to turn away some people just because the venue couldn't fit any more people.
That's amazing.
And not only that, they also had to split the head judging staff into 4 sections. Usually there's only one head judge, but for that particular event, since it was so big, they had to split it up into 4 sections.
Wow.
Pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, I understand that you attended Spectrum Art Live last year, correct?
That's right.
Can you tell us about your experience at the very first Spectrum Art Live?
Well, I think that any Magic fan would be really, really excited to have been there, because there were over 50 Magic artists alone. There were a lot of other really amazing artists there too, but if you were just looking to get cards signed, that would be like a huge, huge event. And it was really exciting being at the first of what I hope will be an annual thing that will go on into the foreseeable future. I'm planning to go again this year, so I'm looking forward to that.
Wish I could be there with you. Because I was hoping to get some funding from somebody to go to the very first one. When I looked at the entire list, according to Arcade Post, he said that about nearly 7 Magic artists actually showed up. He tallied up about 67 total, with the exception of Todd Lockwood, although he was listed. And then he mentioned that both Drew Tucker and Doug Alexander Gregory were in attendance, but they were not listed.
Yeah, it was a big show.
And it's pretty ironic that most Magic players would not even know even more than 10 to 20 names at once, as opposed to a person like myself who has been playing Magic for many, many years, who knows over 60 plus names, especially all the obscure names that people usually don't come across. Because when I was down at San Jose for the Grand Prix, just for a few hours, I asked one person in line behind me, as I'm waiting to get my stuff signed by Rob Alexander, how many names he knew off of the cards. He said about 10 to 20 names. So then I brought up a few names. He says, yes, I recognize that one. And then when I brought up Jean Sebastian Rosbach's name, he says, I don't know who that person is.
Wow. Yeah, it's a different world when you're talking to a Magic artist, because we know the artist names. Most Magic artists know the artist names way more than they know the titles of even their own cards. Because when we get a commission from Magic, sometimes it has like a placeholder title, and they give it a different title when it's released. So if you ask any Magic artist, even just the title of their own card, they might not know it.
Yeah, I remember Rob Alexander telling everybody that multiple times in multiple different interviews, that when he got the commission for all 10 original Ravnica lands, he didn't actually get the official names. He just got some vague, obscure placeholder name. And then as time went along, and he's like, he asked the previous director at the time, are these all dual lands? He's like, are these all lands? He's like, yes, they are. They're all dual lands. and then when he submitted his first 4 in, the director was not supposed to give him the remaining 6, but they gave him the remaining 6 anyway. So he practically did all 10 Ravnica dual lands.
Mm-hmm. There's an artist I know who has done enough cards that he has a deck that's entirely his own artwork. That's Chris Muller.
Yeah, I recognize him.
Yeah, he had done so many Magic cards that he had almost a full deck, and then he asked if he could be assigned some land cards so that he could finish out his deck and play with a deck that was all his own cards. He's one of the guys that's like a really big Magic player as well as artist.
And I also learned that he's not a big person who will actually sign a lot of stuff. Because I remember that my friend went down to San Diego Comic-Con a while back. He brought about a stack of 20, and Muller was, like, somewhat not in the mood to sign all those 20 pieces. Although I've heard of pretty insane stories about which places that artists usually avoid, especially Germany, where the kids will come to an artist's booth with a stack of 100 and expect the artist to sign that stack of 100 in one go, on average.
Yeah.
Especially
I've had people bring some pretty big stacks to me too, which is surprising because I haven't been doing it that long. So they'll have like dozens of the same card, and I just kind of find it confusing when they do that. I mean, I have a cousin who's a big Magic player, and even he won't ask me to sign all of the cards of mine that he owns just because he knows it's like a little bit rude to like have that big of a stack. But you know, when you're at a signing event, you expect that. It's when you're at a different event, when you're at other events like Spectrum Live or something. If somebody brought me a stack of 100 or 200 cards to sign at Spectrum Live, I'd be like, how about if I just sign a portion of these and you can come back to me another time with the rest or something? Just because it takes so much of your time and other people are waiting to meet you. So.
Yeah. That's what
It's like, what do you need 30 signed copies of the same card right now? You can wait till the second or third day of the show to get the rest.
Unless you're Rob Alexander, who could do 2 German stacks in one go. According to Matt Kavoda, he said that he was at another signing event with Rob Alexander, and he was like yelling, "What the fuck?" again and again and again when several people came to Rob Alexander's booth with like stacks of 100, 200, even up to 1,000 to sign in one go, and Rob's like, he's like, "Sure thing," as if it's no big deal to him. But to most regular Magic artists out there and artists in general, like, too insane.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind signing fairly big stacks, but it's like partially I'm just still so new to it that I still get excited to see that somebody's collecting my cards. So when they have a big stack, I kind of feel a little flattered. But I mean, I expect to be doing this for many years, and if somebody comes up to me with a huge stack, you know, when I've already been signing big stacks of cards for years, I'd probably see it differently. But for now, I still think it's really fun.
And we understand that you got into Illucon for this year, and what will you be exhibiting for 2013?
I'm sorry, I got into what?
Illucon.
There was a sound I couldn't hear.
IlluXCon.
Oh, IlluXCon? Yeah, IlluXCon is specifically a traditional painting event. So I'll be showing all original paintings, and I have some Magic cards that I've painted fully in oil. rather than digital, so I will have those on display there.
So expect a lot of people fighting over an original painting, correct?
I hope so. It's a big show, though. I'm definitely nowhere near the most famous artist there. I'm in the bottom of the stack as far as that goes. There are other artists there that have done way more cards than me and just have had much longer careers. So part of it for me is just exciting to be able to go and see their original paintings.
Especially Pete Venters and Kev Walker, because they recently did a huge tally of Magic artists who has done the most pieces up to this point. If you include promos and tokens, Kev Walker and Pete Venters are practically neck and neck.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I'm more familiar with Kev Walker's stuff, but I know that he's done a ridiculous amount. He's just been at it for so long. He's one of the guys who's had the longest career with Magic, isn't he?
Yes, but then actually Kev Walker is like semi-longest, but he has done the most pieces. But the two people who have done it the most up to this point is Rob Alexander and Mark Tedin.
And Mark what?
Mark Tedin.
Okay.
Recognize Mark Tedin?
I think if I saw it written down, I would. I'm having a hard time understanding.
Jazam Dajan. Do you recognize the card Jazam Dajan?
No.
Lord of the Pit.
Can you spell his last name? Because I'm just not hearing it right.
T-E-D-I-N.
Yeah, I don't know his stuff as much. I know Kev Walker's and what's the other name that you mentioned?
Rob Alexander.
Sorry?
Rob Alexander.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think because I had not played it for so many years, some of those names that have done a lot of cards, I haven't seen all of their work because there's a big gap between when I used to play it in the 90s and when I started doing work for them and started really paying attention to all the other artists that are doing it right now. There's like a gap of artists who are doing it in the meantime that I don't know as well.
Especially Damien Willowich.
Mm-hmm.
Damien Willowich was actually a full-time stuntman when he actually did a few illustrations for Magic.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Although he's pretty old right now, and there's barely any way of tracking him down. He did tell us this in his rare interview on YouTube that he was actually a stuntman full-time and then an illustrator part-time.
Wow.
And then there's Cornelius Brudi, the number one artist who is the most misattributed artist of all time.
Wow.
Do you recognize Cornelius Brudi?
No, I don't know it.
Well, what happened, the story goes, is they took one of his pieces of work, they put it in as a fill-in for Revised Plateau, which the illustration was originally done by Drew Tucker. But the thing is, when they sent it off to the printers, they forgot to change the attribution from Drew Tucker to Cornelius Brudi. So every single card, including the foreign copies, which features Cornelius Brudi's work on Plateau for the revised edition of the base set, has Drew Tucker's name on it. So when everybody looks at it, it's like, oh, I think this is Drew Tucker's work, but in actuality, that's not really Drew Tucker's work. It's really Cornelius Brudi's work.
It must have been so upsetting for him.
Yeah, I wanted to get his reaction on it, and I've been tracking him down for an interview, asking him about it. But if everybody's talking about the most misattributed artist of all time, it has to be Cornelius Brudi. And then
how many millions of those cards was printed? It must be a lot.
Yeah,
All over the world.
especially the French editions. But at the same time, I learned that this actually started an actually new tradition within Magic, where they would actually give another artist another shot at an existing card instead of a brand new card.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was the only card in the revised set that actually got a new piece of art instead of recycling the same pieces from previous sets into that set.
Oh wow, that's really interesting. I haven't done any repaints of existing cards, but my boyfriend Anthony Palumbo did the Pithing Needle, which was an existing card, and his brother Dave Palumbo did, I think, Dispel. I'm not sure the name of it.
Dispel?
Yeah. The one with the fist like this, and there's light coming out of it, like an older guy, like smashing the card.
Oh, you mean Cancel? I have
Cancel.
I have copies of those.
Yeah.
That was take 2. That was take 2 of the card.
Yep.
Because I remember that the first take was done by Mark Pohl, the second take was done by him, and then there's a third take done by Scott Cho, and then there's another take done by Karl Kapinski.
Uh-huh.
There's like 4 takes on the card so far. And then if we include the promo version, that's like five different takes on the card.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like a card that doesn't do much. It has like 5 takes and several production runs.
Mhm. I guess it's a standby.
I do have the original Pithing Needle. That was done by Pete Venters.
Mhm.
But anyway, getting back to our interview. How many years have you been going to the ElexCon?
I think this coming year is my 4th or 5th. I think it'll be my 5th one. I didn't go to the first one. It was the second one and after that I've been to.
So you've practically been to 4 of them, correct?
Yeah.
If you include this upcoming one.
Will the upcoming one be the 4th one? Is it ElexCon 5 this year or ElexCon 6?
I haven't been paying attention to it. I thought you said that you went to it 3 times, and then if you include this one, it's going to be the 4th time.
I think it's actually going to be my 5th. I go to so many shows that the memories kind of run together, so I'm trying to figure it out. But I think this year is ElexCon 6, and I've only missed one.
And that was the first one, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
I see. And what does your signature look like at this time?
What does my what look like?
What does your signature look like at this time?
Oh, it's kind of a, it's kind of like it looks sort of like a heartbeat monitor. Here, I'll do one right now. It's about like this.
Oh, I see. And how has it evolved over the years?
I think the biggest change is just that I don't really draw out all of the letters anymore. When I was a teenager, I would put my whole first name and my whole last name, and now it's kind of the W and then the N and then a bump and then the L and then just a line. So it's kind of like it got streamlined so that I could write it faster for when I'm signing a lot of things at once. But, yeah, it's basically just gotten a little bit messier.
So you'll sign anything and everything, correct?
Yeah.
So you have the Mark Zug policy, correct?
Yeah, I think so. Is his policy just to sign everything?
Yeah, so you've read the policy, correct? So where he says, I'll sign anything and everything, especially kitchen appliances, dead pets, books, game paraphernalia, you name it, I'll sign it.
Yeah, I would do that.
So,
I actually, when I was at the Toronto Grand Prix, toward the end of the last day, I was tired enough that somebody gave me a stack of cards to sign, and I signed them all, and then I realized right after signing one that it wasn't my card. It was actually my boyfriend Tony's card, and he was at the event too, so I was like, Tony, I just signed your card. But the card, it was a copy of the pissing needle, and those were my hands on the card. So Tony signed it, and we just told the fan that now he had the signature of the artist and the model. And he liked that, so...
So you were used as a model for pithing needle?
Yeah, it's my hands holding the needle, like, this, sort of.
Yeah, instead of the needle being stabbed into somebody's neck.
Yeah, and the neck is my boyfriend's neck. I took the picture of the back of his head for him.
I was also referring to the original. The original that was in Saviors of Kamigawa. Because I remember when I was first introduced to pithing needle, before your boyfriend did the retake on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was somebody else's hand stabbing a needle into the back of somebody's neck.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that one yet?
Yeah, and Tony's is more like the back of the person's head, I think. But it's still pretty similar in the idea.
Well, anyway, I do have one card that I remember that I do have one card where Matt Kavoda actually mistakenly signed in that didn't actually feature his work. Let me go get it. Where did I put it? Yeah, I do have a bookcase. Let me go fish it out of my binder. Give me a sec. This one?
Oops.
Yep.
What does that say, Scott? What?
Can you read the name?
Scott Bailey?
Yep. I remember that when I went to the World Championships, I usually fish out everything, or an appropriate amount of stuff, and every now and then I might pull out somebody else's stuff by mistake. So when I was at the booth, and he was signing stuff really rapidly, and then there's this last card, and then he just quickly signed it, I was like, everyone's like, huh? For a moment, it's like, and then Matt looked down at it, it says, Scott Bailey, it's like, whoops. So that's what he did. It's like, whoops. Not only that, I also have another example, but this was done through the mail, where Ben Thompson actually signs a card done by Larry Elmore.
Whoa. That's pretty funny. He's got a nice signature.
Ben Thompson? He used to do freelance, but now he works for Blizzard. The last time I checked.
I know him.
I have also, since I'm showing you some of the signed pieces I have in my personal holdings, I do have a really rare one. I do have a really rare one that I have not shown anywhere. Actually, I have not shown it to anybody outside of my inner circle, but you'll be the very first person to see it outside of my inner circle. Let me go get it. It's one by Hiro Izawa. Do you recognize Hiro Izawa?
No.
He did the concepts for the original Kamigawa block. And he did do 2 final pieces in the final set before they sent it off to production. If you were playing the game back in 2004, you would recognize the piece. You would recognize the piece immediately because it was one of the first pieces to be spoiled with the text, and it was also all over the place. It was even in a World Championship winning deck and a Nationals winning deck. It's some Yosei the Morning Star. This one.
Wow.
This one is signed off by the artist. And these are the only 4 in the world.
There's 4?
Yeah, there's only 4 signed copies in the world, and I have them in my holdings. Although it took me and my buddies about 10 months to get that signature. Although the material took like less than $2 to do, but the time to get the signature was like very time consuming. We're talking about 10 months. 10 months trying to get that signature. And
Did you send it to him and then it took him that long to get it back to you?
No, it took a long time to convince Hiro for us to send some stuff to him and then for him to sign it. Before it was like click, 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 and then by about, I believe, the 5th email, my buddy picked up a bang. He's like, Hiro's like, what's this all about? And then we had to explain our business, and then it got to the point, and then Hiro said, I'm okay with signing stuff as long as it's not too many. You're allowed to send the spore specified items. And then I recalled that there's one point where we hit a speed bump, where Hiro says, I never signed cards before. Which side of the card do I sign? And then we had to explain to him that anywhere on the front side. And if you notice, Hiro signed in the spot where all the older artists used to sign, the blank space in the card. So, and there's a huge market for signed pieces that I understand. Especially, there's a huge market for misprints, test prints, and all sorts of wacky stuff. Especially by a guy named Keith Adams. He's a major misprint collector and test print collector. He, in fact, has 4 full decks of proto cards.
What is a proto card?
The type of cards that the university students were issued by Dr. Garfield when they were testing the game before they sent the final cards off to the printer.
Oh, wow. That's gotta be rare.
He has 4 full decks of it.
Wow.
He even has invitational test prints. He even has test prints. He has test prints of foils. He has test prints. He has some, I believe, test prints of the modern border before they sent it off to the printer. Especially foil copies. He just unveiled them about a few weeks ago. That he has some of them in his possession, and they're actually playable as well. And he's also found full miscut sheets.
Whoa.
As in, he bought a pack, he found one miscut, and then he and his buddies pooled together their money really quickly within a few hours, bought up the whole box, and then they found a whole sheet.
That's awesome.
In fact, if you want to see what he has in his possession, you can type in misprint guy in the YouTube search engine. And you'll see a funny little guy.
He's got like YouTube videos and stuff?
Yep.
That's cool.
Well, on your free time, you can take a look at what he has actually found, discovered, and actually pulled out from the very mess that people tend to forget over the years.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
So, on your free time, you could actually see what he has actually found over the years. Anyway.
I met a guy at the Toronto Grand Prix who was big on collecting altered cards by the artist. And he showed me a binder full of alters that was really cool. His name was Khan something.
Khan something?
I don't know his last name. He just introduced himself as Khan. But it was really, really cool. Since it was my first Magic event, I didn't really know what an altar was, or what was expected when people asked for an altar. And so seeing his collection was really good, because then it just sort of showed me what was expected, what kinds of things you could do with an altar. And then I had a legendary angel card, Bruna, and somebody had an oversized foil of that they had me alter. And I thought that was really cool. I had never seen the oversized foil before. I didn't know they even did that.
Actually, they've actually been doing that for quite some time, but more recently in foil, like regular copies.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember at my local shop, they used to have an oversized copy of Jazam Dajin from 1994.
Wow.
I don't know what happened to it, but it was there. And they have done oversized cards before, which are not playable.
Yeah, they're more just for collecting.
Yeah, practically it. And everybody might be wondering out there if it is okay if they send you stuff through the mail for signing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm fine with that as long as they have a return envelope in there. So, like, if you send me cards, as long as you have a self-addressed stamped envelope so that I can return them easily, then I'm usually pretty fast about that. I also, you can buy artist proofs that way too. Just like PayPal me, and then I'll include those in with the ones that I'm signing. So I've done quite a bit of those.
So you still have practically everything available.
Mm-hmm. The only card that I don't have any more proofs for is Bruna, the legendary angel.
So it was sold out at the Grand Prix and online, correct?
Mm-hmm. Bruna was sold out before the Grand Prix. I sold out of that at Spectrum Live, which is the first show that I brought it to. So it went really fast.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that my friend bought...
I'm sorry?
Say again. What were you going to say?
That I painted that one in oil, and the original painting of that sold before the Grand Prix as well.
That's also interesting to know as well. Let's see, the Bruno was sold out, the painting was sold out, and... Oh yes, as I was going to say, I remember that my friend bought a proof off of Mike Sutphin, and he was really surprised that Mike Sutphin still had some Rofellos proofs available.
Mm-hmm.
So he
I think that people don't realize that they can get proofs sometimes.
Yeah.
They only give you 50 of each card unless the card gets reissued. So they're actually really rare, but a lot of fans don't think to ask the artist to buy them.
Yeah, just like what Jesper did back in the
Sorry, I can't hear you over the... Is there a plane?
No, there's no plane. unless it's your side.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Can you still hear me?
I think there's another sound that's happening that's like louder than your voice.
I think it's
Okay,
my laptop because the fan's sometimes.
It sounded like an airplane.
Yeah. But anyway, as I was saying, it's just like what Jesper said back in the early days, when he was trying to get people to illustrate for the game. He said that he was having a hard time getting artists to illustrate for the card for Magic, back before he could actually get a whole bunch of professionals, and before the digital age actually happened. So he set up this new system. So he set up the system, we'll give you, where he specified that we'll give the artist 50 proofs, we'll pay them royalties, and we'll get their name out there.
Mm-hmm.
And back in September, Jesper Myrfors caught a criminal. The very first art director of Magic caught a criminal.
Wow.
In September. It was actually in the local news. I couldn't believe what happened.
What do you mean? What kind of criminal?
I believe it was a pedophile. He caught him.
Whoa.
He caught that pedophile via Facebook. He pretended to be a 16-year-old girl. Let's see. He pretended to be a 16-year-old girl. He then kept trading information between that pedophile and him up until they decided to catch him.
Mm-hmm. So is he like an undercover cop or something now?
No, he's still doing art for other games at this time. But I do remember that at that particular moment he was doing some undercover stuff to catch certain pedophiles. I don't know all the details on it, but I do recall that he caught a criminal back in September.
Wow.
And anyway, what type of guy is Anthony Palumbo?
He's fantastic. He's really, really super nice. And, I mean, I'm in love with him, so you're gonna get a biased report from me, of course, but he's, like, just a really, really good person with, like, solid gold heart, you know. And he's an amazing artist, too.
The laptop's blurring out the sound again.
Yeah, it sounds like it's done.
Yeah. Anyway, as you were saying.
I met Tony at a painting workshop. Right when I had decided that I wanted to get out of working in video games and move into doing illustration full time. And when I met him, he was just starting to do the same thing, moving out of painting fine art for galleries and getting more interested in doing illustrations. So we started doing more science fiction and fantasy stuff at the same time. And we met at this week-long workshop, and by the end of it, I was pretty sure I was going to move to Philadelphia to be with him.
And is it true that...
like, love at first sight.
I see. And is it true that he's related to Dave Palumbo?
Yeah, they're brothers.
Oh, I see. They're really brothers.
Yep.
Just like...
I actually knew Dave before I knew Tony.
Oh, I see.
So, Dave was the one who introduced us.
Oh, I see. And I do have one particular controversial question I want to ask. It has nothing to do with NDAs, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And how you will react, I do not know. But I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you believe, for the love of hell, that Jason Chan, the artist, should fix his listed email address and publish a public apology notice regarding his unprofessionalism over it? and other such related things?
I think that's up to Jason. He's a little bit more of a private guy than some of the other artists I know. But, you know, he's super busy, and I know him pretty well from my time at the Safe House Atelier, and I would not ever want to say anything at all negative about him. He's a super sweet guy. He's just, you know, if he's focusing on other things and hasn't changed his email, I think that's up to him.
Because his email has not been working for 2 years, although he has claimed that he... what did he say again? Alright. He claimed that he was going to fix it, like, 2011, but he still has not fixed it, according to many potential employers. It's, like, littered all over his blog. It's like, I'm interested, I want to get permission to use his work for A, B, and C, but your email is not working. I wanted to hire you for A, B, and C. Your email is not working. Where can I find your email? A working email, particularly.
Well, I know he's been very busy, and to the point that he's actually he's passed some work on to other artists we know because he was too busy to take it. So I figure when he needs the work, he'll fix it. I think he's just got so much on his plate that he can't take the time right now.
I see.
I mean, I know it's really annoying for people who are trying to get a hold of him, but he's one of the busiest people I know. He's constantly working. So.
Yeah, the laptop's blurring out the sound again. Can you still hear me through the laptop sound?
Sorry, it's still making the sound.
Anyway, as I was saying, he has not fixed his email for about 2 years. I found records dating all the way back to early 2011 where these problems started showing up. And by my understanding, most people who have email problems usually fix them within 96 hours, regardless of how busy they are. Same goes with public information and everything else.
Well, I think he wants his privacy or something. He's really a very private person. He's kind of a quiet guy, so I think going after him about it is probably not going to make him any more likely to pay attention to it. It might actually have the adverse effect of, you know, making him sort of, I don't know. I just think it's up to him whether he does it or not.
Yeah, it is really up to him. I've practically left him alone on it, but I did tell him that it's going to have a lot of backlash if this keeps going on.
Well, I don't feel that it's anything that you should hold against him personally.
Well, I don't hold it against him personally, but I can see a lot of backlash in the coming years if this is going to keep going. If he has a listed email and if the person gets a failure message, then shouldn't he fix such a simple problem like an email?
Well, he probably will when it becomes enough of an issue for him that he needs to do it, but he certainly doesn't need more work than he's already got. I think he's got enough to do to keep all of his bills paid and stuff, so if it's work things that he's missing out on, there's it's still up to him.
Okay. Okay. I thought we might talk about it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that you travel a lot, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How much stuff have you lost to Homeland Security?
I not very much. I lost a bottle of eyeglass cleaner and a Swiss Army knife that I didn't know was still in my coat from a camping trip. But that's it.
So they didn't cut your bag open and they didn't do all that other nasty stuff.
No, nobody's ever cut my bag. I did have, when I went to Spain, and security coming back from Spain, like, opened my suitcase and, like, checked everything really carefully. They were, like, they had my jeans and they were, like, bending all the seams to make sure there was nothing sewn into it, I guess. And that was pretty rigorous, but, you know, I didn't have anything contraband, so they didn't have anything to find.
But still a nuisance to do, right?
Yeah, it's still a nuisance. I mean, there's like, there's a lot of problems with traveling with art materials, because some people use razor blades to sharpen their charcoal and things like that, and you can't bring razor blades with you, even though trying to use those as some kind of weapon would be very difficult. But, yeah, I mean, I have actually had scissors in my luggage that I didn't realize were there before, and they weren't taken away. Even though it was a big pair of scissors, I was kind of surprised by that. But, yeah, there's problems with, whenever I am traveling for a painting thing, I have to buy, half of my supplies when I get to the destination, because you can't fly with solvents and things like that.
Which is still practically a nuisance.
Yeah.
Because I remember that Jesse Ventura has already filed a lawsuit against Homeland Security regarding all these things and more of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it would definitely make things easier if you didn't have to take off your shoes and belt and go through the scanner thing and all of that stuff.
So you've gone through the naked body scanners, correct?
Yeah.
How many times have you gone?
I managed to avoid it for a long time, but they got me the last couple of trips.
How many trips?
The last couple of trips, I think the last 2 or 3 times I've flown, they've had the body scanners.
The microwave machines.
Yeah.
I hope you don't have to go through those microwave machines again and again and again, because they've already been proven unsafe.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that it's pointless anyway. It's like, I don't know. I think pretty much anybody would agree that that all of these security measures are really they go over the line of actually keeping things safe and sort of instill this feeling of there's terrorism all around us when the numbers don't support that. And, you know, especially the liquids thing is really annoying, because the limit on how many containers you can have of how much liquid makes it really hard. If you have to travel with toiletries, you're only allowed to bring like 2 or 3 bottles of liquid, including gels. So that's like, you can bring your gel deodorant and like a little thing of shampoo, but if you also wanted to bring lotion, you're out of luck. So that's pretty annoying.
Yep. So, what type of guys would Brachna?
I'm sorry?
What type of guys would Brachna?
With Brockna, he's really a cool guy. He's a really funny and very laid back person.
Very laid back?
Yeah. He's very chill.
I see. And the 20th anniversary of Magic is coming up. Do you plan to do anything for it?
I don't have any specific plans, no. If I get invited to something, then I'll probably go. But I saw the Kickstarter project that some of the original artists are doing to make a book of the original art, and they've got Wizards of the Coast permissions and everything. I think that's really cool. I've met some of the original artists, and they're really, really fun to talk to about the differences between how it was working for Magic back in the olden days and what it's like now.
Yeah, especially the part.
Hold on, I can't hear you.
Damn fan. Especially,
What were you saying?
as I was saying, especially the part where Jesper like picks up his phone and calls up all the artists one by one, saying, "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Artist. Would you like to be interested in doing an illustration for this upcoming game? We have the following items that are not occupied at this time." It's like, I will read you all the titles. I'll read you all the titles off the list I have on me. It's like,
yeah, the title was all they would get, and they'd just have to make a painting based on the title.
yeah.
That was a pretty crazy kind of assignment.
Yeah, especially that other part, and where Martine said, it used to be strip mine, go. It's like,
yeah.
hello, Mr. and Mrs. Artist. We completed Urza's mine. Can you bring it in? That's not what we were looking. That's not what we were looking for. We were looking for mine shafts. Oh, I thought you meant explosive devices. That's where the idea of a style guide actually came into place. It's like, it's just getting too confusing. It's like, Urza's mine. Oh, do you mean mine shafts or do you mean explosive devices? And if I got it wrong, oh well, we'll do it again.
Yeah, they've definitely streamlined the process a lot, but back in the early days, like their sales pitch, the terms did not sound very good. It was like the kind of thing where a lot of artists get asked to do things for free, and then they are promised royalties, and that's like kind of how Magic was at the beginning. But nobody expected that the royalties would actually be a lot of money, and the game turned out to be such a hit that the artists who were on the original set got paid a lot of royalties for it.
Especially the 50 proofs of each card.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a lot of stuff for a really small company at the time.
Yeah. And a lot of the established artists refused to work on it because they weren't getting a fair rate up front. So
I see.
it had a funny collection of artists who were willing to work for those terms, who then got a really good reward for it.
Damn laptop. Can you still hear me on your end? Or is the laptop still blurring it out?
I can't hear it over the sound.
Okay, can you hear me now? There we go. And going into the home stretch, how do you evaluate portfolios?
The first question I ask people when I'm looking at a portfolio is what it is they want to do for a career, because my feedback is going to be very different depending on what their focus is and what their hopes are with their portfolio, because there are a lot of different specific fields in art that require different portfolios and different skills. And sometimes people don't know exactly where their skills will fit in, because they don't know about the different specializations. Like, for instance, user interface artists are they're in high demand in the video game industry, but there aren't a lot of people that focus on that kind of thing specifically. So when I see a portfolio where somebody has spent maybe not as much time on the illustration as they spent designing a border for it, then I might tell them, there's a job where you just make borders and buttons and stuff that you might be interested in. Or, if somebody doesn't really know what they want to do, then I'll look at their portfolio and see what might be a good fit for them based on what it looks like they enjoyed the most in their portfolio, the things that are the most loved and the most time put into it. And then if they do have a specific goal, then I can give a little bit more targeted advice as to different types of pieces they should be focusing on to show the skills that they would need to show for the kind of job they want to get. So when I do a portfolio review, it can be pretty specific. I'm trying to help the person find a place to fit their artwork into some kind of a career, as opposed to just talking about general art practices.
I see. And how often do you evaluate them?
How often do I what?
How often do you evaluate them?
Pretty much any time someone comes up to me with them. I kind of do it all throughout some of the events I do. Like at a Magic Grand Prix, people aren't usually looking for portfolio reviews, but at something like IlluxCon, there are a lot of students looking for feedback and information. So I spend more time at IlluxCon doing portfolio reviews than just about anything else.
Oh, I see. And what's your strongest piece of advice you could hand to a newcomer entering the field?
To continuously make new work, because if you submit your portfolio to any art director, no matter what your portfolio looks like, and then you submit it to the same art director in 6 months, and you have new work that shows a vast improvement over your old work, then even if they can't use your work yet, they will definitely remember your name and remember to watch for you. So I think that's the most important thing that I would say to just about anybody, is always do more portfolio pieces.
I see. And for all the Magic players out there who do not want to send their stuff through the mail, do you plan to appear at any other events in the near future, Magic or not?
Yeah, the ones that I know for sure I'm going to are, I'm doing PAX East, and I'll be at the official Wizards booth for that. And then Spectrum Art Live and IlluxCon are the only ones that I have definitely set in stone, but I'll probably be doing some other events as well.
So practically a total of 3 at this time, with 1 canceled earlier.
With one what?
With 1 canceled earlier. You said that you had to cancel 1 event earlier, back in January.
Yeah, I did. Mm-hmm.
And it had to do with your teeth, correct?
Yeah, I had to have some emergency procedures for a toothache, and they took out one of my wisdom teeth that wasn't actually the source of the pain. So then they had to give me a root canal in another tooth, and it ended up being this long ordeal of several dentist visits.
Several dentist visits?
Mm-hmm.
So practically you have a denture in your mouth, correct?
Well, I have one tooth that's a full crown now. They did a root canal and then put a crown over the tooth. So it's not on the scale of full dentures, but it is one tooth that is no longer real.
So it's between a denture and a real tooth, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And before we conclude, is there any personal projects of yours you would like to talk about?
Well, I have a webcomic that I'm working on that I think will be debuted in about 6 months.
6 months?
And that will be called Rogue. So, watch out for that, I guess.
So, so you're still working out the logistics on that, correct?
Well, I'm building up the actual library of pages now, and I want to make sure that I have a few months worth of pages before I debut it on the internet, just so that the update schedule will be rock solid, and I won't have to miss any updates, even if I do have to take time off. So that's my plan. And I'm working with the writer Nathan Long, who wrote a few of the Warhammer novels that I did covers for.
So you're working with him so you can get the plot out correct?
I'm sorry?
So you get the plot out just right, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, the whole project is already written out. It's just the pages are in the process of being drawn and colored.
And this should be out by around, what month again? August?
Probably something like that. I would say late summer, early fall.
So your aim time is August, because you said 6 months, and it's already the second month of 2013, February.
Mm-hmm.
So we should expect it sometime around August.
Yeah, something around then. I don't know the exact date yet. So, but I'll definitely be posting news about that on my Facebook page and my my website.
So you'll post the news up on the Facebook page and your website, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And that's practically all my questions. And thanks for your time.
Thank you. And just, I don't know if you need this in the video, but if anybody is looking for my website, it's WinonaNelson.com. And on Facebook, you can just search for my name.
Okay, and I'll put a link in below, in the description bar when this video is uploaded.
Great.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Sure thing.